Hello, people. Welcome to another edition of Friday Night Knives here on A Dose of Drew. Wow, let's see if I can get this straight. Maybe not. Let's see. Anyway, all right. Now that I hit that right in the very entrance bit, tonight on Dose of Drew Friday Night Knives here, we're going to be looking at a knife cockfight. It is the WE Gnar versus the Wiener Warrior. This is the old school WE Gnar, and this is the new Wiener Warrior. So we're going to be taking a look at this. I'm going to be using the same criteria I do on regular knives, but we'll on a much more loose, as this is one of the first battle of the knives that I have. All right, so knife fight here. All right, so WE Gnar, the old titanium, it is a bit more expensive, has this trailing harpoon point, and the Wiener Warrior, the Blade HQ AK-47 Boker Kalashnikov hot dog version. All right, so let's talk about this. We're not going to be doing a lot of this. Other than doing some comparative measurements, I'm not going to be really comparing them to a lot of other knives or any of that stuff, so let's get into some of those bits. A little over 3 inches of blade on the Wiener Warrior, and only, let's see if I can get this right here. Wow, it's cutting into my tape. I gotta be careful. Just about as much under 3 inches as the Wiener Warrior is over it. Overall length, I'm really just not getting this here. Just under 7 inches. Overall length on the Wiener Warrior is about 7.5. But we all know that length is not the only thing that matters. All right, couple other things. Believe it or not, the Wiener Warrior is actually somewhat thicker. All right, it's thicker, and it's got a bit more girth. Can't lie. It also has a bit of a curve to it, which is nice. You know all that. But here's the other thing. Like when it comes to the design. Okay, the design, aesthetics, mechanics, noteworthy points, intended purpose, cost, value, ratio, interest. We're going to deviate a little bit from that. The design is okay. All right, the aesthetics. Oh man, this is first. Well, I'm going to go to the aesthetics because the WE Gnar, more refined, classy, you might even say, elegant, thought out. You know, this might almost be the more distinguished gentleman or the more distinguished older gentleman of the two, you might say. It kind of has that vibe. It's got some of these classics. It's really good. The Wiener Warrior is the newcomer on the block. This is the new kid, right? Pops open. It's got that fun vibe, right? It's just kind of cool, kind of cute. Does all that stuff. It's not so bad. You know, there's a couple of other things, but it is almost like kind of the younger version here. You might start to notice a theme. We call that foreshadowing. All right, so as far as the design goes, kind of similar. The WE Gnar is quite obviously made to be used, right? But it is made to be used in a far more deliberate fashion. There's really only one deployment method, and that's the thumb stud, right? It has a relatively smaller hand space, but every bit of it is useful. The Kalashnikov here, the Wiener Warrior, it's really only good for one hand. You can kind of pinch grip because of the auto and the thing. You can kind of give it a sort of overhand saber, but it's really just one grip. It's kind of a one-trick pony, but it is ready to go at any time. Being sort of the younger generation here, it's fun, it's whimsical, it's got all that going for it. It's also it's kind of just funny, right? It gives you some laughs, kind of all the time. You see it and it's like, that's funny. Well, the WE Gnar doesn't quite do that. It doesn't quite have that same it's more reliable, understated, you might say. It's not so much that it isn't there. It's just you open it and it just does what it is. It might almost go under the radar, so to speak. Or perhaps we'll come up with it. Let me put it this way. Its abilities and the appreciation of it kind of flies under the covers, you might say. Or in this case, I just did say. All right, so the mechanics, as we were talking about here, this is a nice, snappy automatic. It is so much fun. It just instantly, like boom, you just barely got to touch it, and it's out, ready to go. Whereas the WE Gnar is indeed the more distinguished and older gentleman. It's not that it can't snap out fast. You just need to be a bit more deliberate. It's not going to accidentally pop out, right? It's not going to accidentally like, oh, was it? Oh, I just accidental. No. You intend. As far as the Kalashnikov goes, I mean, you can almost breathe on it and it'll pop out. You know what I mean? Some of us may even remember back in the day where all of our knives were like that. You know, most, considering that the breakdown of of the people who watch this channel are approximately 400 something men and like one chick. Yeah, we're going to go with the male-dominated audience here. All right, so yeah, the younger one definitely pops out, but it can almost accidentally do it. And I mean, once it's out, you want to use it, right? Like, it's out. Okay, I better use it. Okay, now I'll put it back. It's done. Woo! Yeah, do it again. Oh, yeah. Ooh, over and over again, right? Whereas the WE, it's not that it can't just go anytime out, but it's deliberate. You got to know you're going to use it. It's going to stay put away and safe until it knows it needs to be used, until it's deliberately useful for something you're going to do. And there's all sorts of ways. It's small, it's light, it's got a nice curve. It's not really that bad. And again, it's refined, elegant. It's got this class, the deliberateness of it. Look, you may like the fun. Lord knows we all do, especially when we're young. But for me, the deliberateness, the elegance, and the class of the WE Gnar kind of take the day. I know there are a lot of people who love this quick automatic, but for me, it's, how did I say it? It's almost a little bit immature comparatively. Like if I were to take a look at these classy, sort of gold accented, I'm kind of looking at this as, it may not be as quick, may not be as willing and ready to open as the WE Gnar. That's the one-handed version, by the way. Especially when you don't have much of a tip. Right? So yeah, sometimes it takes two hands. It's hard to control. Like you can't always put it away, right? Sometimes you got to have some help to get that thing down. But yeah, and it kind of goes with the design. The mechanics on the WE Gnar are really hard to fault. Probably the worst thing I can say is sometimes, if you put your hand in the wrong place, or if you're touching it wrong, it can be almost impossible. Like if you're pushing on that frame lock, it can be really hard, but it can still be, believe it or not, still be done. It just takes a little bit of work. I push on that, and I can still slow roll that thing out. Might take a minute, take a little bit of work, but it still works when you do. It may take a little TLC, so to speak, but when it does, it works. All right, noteworthy points. Really, on the Wiener Warrior here, the noteworthy point, one, is an automatic. Number two, it's a hot dog, right? Hot dog. Like, that's really cool. And it's got a lot of novelty. And it is fun. Usability, real life kind of criteria, it isn't quite as good as the WE Gnar. The older, more elegant bits of the WE Gnar, I think, kind of outweigh the Wiener Warrior. In fact, the Wiener Warrior kind of reminds me of my younger days. Anyway, yes, and the extra red tip, notice the nice rounded end to prevent hard penetration. But yeah, the red tip looks cool. It's all that. It's just, there's not a lot of use on the tip. You got to make sure it's covered. You know what I'm saying? Like the tip is covered. When it just pops out like this and can come out of your pocket anytime you want to. Make sure that is, and of course the coated blade makes it slightly more safe. As far as the WE Gnar goes, it's a higher quality steel. It has an actual tip that is useful. It is not coated. To use a fork, it's not neutered in any way, which I don't know if I would call the coating or the rounded tip on the Wiener Warrior that, but when it comes to use, it does limit certain things you can do, as well as feedback, or you could even say feel with the blade. It definitely limits the feel. But yeah, yes, to answer you guys' question, this is how the entire review is going to go. All right, so that's the noteworthy points. One, novelty, fun, funny, it's cute, it's got a great little thing. Bam, when it comes out, oh, look what I can do. Woohoo, yeah, out. Woohoo, yeah, again. That's fun. But the WE Gnar, while it doesn't have that panache, that, instant gratification and immediate kind of action, the deliberateness of it, the ability to use it with one hand, knowing that it's going to go there, knowing that if someone else gets it, it's not going to just pop out for them, and they're going to have to be more deliberate, And I think that's one of the good parts about the WE Gnar here. It may be a little bit smaller, but look at how well it fits. It's not always about being larger, it's not. Sometimes it's more about how you use it, right? And especially when you can get right up on the tip, just the tip, or choke back and give it just a really good, like overhand, underhand, choke up on it. You can do the pinch grip, though, it doesn't have as many uses, but I personally think that the one finger on the tip makes it better. But yeah, you can use it in so many ways. It's easy to keep in the pocket. It's not going to accidentally go off in your pocket and do something embarrassing. It's not going to go off just because someone walks by and bumps into you, like this might sometimes. It's, there might be more size to this little thing, but it's, it's not that you can't trust it. They do a very good job of keeping the button down in there, but you got to be careful. You never know when that thing might go off and do something crazy. There's a couple other things too. We're going to, having done a couple measurements before, we'll get into a couple other things. Wiener Warrior, 3.64, 3.74. So even though the Wiener Warrior seems to be a little bit larger, there's just more mass. There's more meat, you could say, to the WE Gnar versus the Wiener Warrior. So even though the dimensions might make it seem like there's more to this one, I think we can agree there's just a slight bit more behind the scenes when it comes to the WE Gnar. And not that usually I have to do this, but we're going to take on some of these others. Blade stock thickness, I would say that's probably about, yeah, there we go. It's really hard to, there you go. 117 thousandths. So I remember from the review, the behind the edge is pretty thick for the D2. And it's like 22 thousandths. Blade stock on the WE Gnar. I believe approximately similar. So yeah, blade stock is actually fairly thick here. Let me see if I can get a better reading out here. 125. It's almost an eighth. Behind the edge. Very slim, right up there with WE. Ooh, 13. Oh no, slipped off. That's why. So hard when it's thin and small like that. There we go. 16 thousandths behind the edge. So much similar blade stock, much thinner behind the edge, and just which gives it overall better performance on the WE Gnar. All right, so the Wiener Warrior, yeah, it's there. It's automatic. It goes out. The WE Gnar, much more deliberate, refined, classy, sort of the older gentleman of the two, while this is more of the young, brash kind of thing. So we're going to, we may continue that. The intended purpose, the WE Gnar seems more serious. It's, yes, we love the fun. We really do. This is great because that's what I'm saying. This is definitely more novelty. This is kind of something you can take to a picnic. It's you can take it home to mom, but you might want to keep it in your pocket. You know what I'm saying? But it's definitely fun. It's something you can kind of take anywhere, unless there's some places that just won't allow automatics, right? It's like, no, that happens too fast. And the WE Gnar actually goes most things under 3-inch limits. This one's over 3 inches. There's a lot of places the smaller and more refined WE Gnar can go. Let that one sit in for a minute. Right? So there's definitely more places you can put the WE Gnar or take it with you. Right? There's just more places the smaller, more refined WE Gnar can go. Just simple fact. Whereas, the larger, more brash is out there with the family. You can take it camping, it can go out. Or it can just be something you don't let anyone know you have. Like it's just kind of your secret little joy, right? This automatic little Wiener Warrior. But that's okay. The cost to value ratio is where it starts to come in, because the WE Gnar was relatively expensive. Not that it's cheap, but it requires investment. It's not gonna be easy for just anyone to get, But the Wiener Warrior, relatively cheap. It's inexpensive. It's not lacking on quality. I mean, it hits hard, right? It pops out hard. It can be used all day with the D2, and then it just pops right back in, right? There's no problem with that. The WE Gnar, much more deliberate. Can still go all day. That S35 yen means it has lower corrosion without needing a cover. Has the thinner edge for really, really, really good slicing ability. And with approximately similar edge retention to D2, it'll go all day at least as well. It's going to move easier through things. And really, it's not meant to just be constantly used, right? You use it when you need it. It goes right back down. It's really great. Goes back into your pockets, hanging out until you need it again. And then boom, like a reliable old friend, it's there. Not that the Kalashnikov can't, the Boker, the Wiener Warrior, it can absolutely do that. But it just doesn't have as much use. It's really far more about the novelty and the giggles. Not saying the giggles aren't worth it. It's worth a good smile. And as long as you're expecting these things from these, they're not bad. But in my opinion, the Wiener Warrior is a novelty. It's fun. It's cool. Yes, you can use it to actually do things like break down boxes, all sorts of other stuff. General utility. It just doesn't have a good point on it that can actually do any of those piercing tasks or a lot of the stuff that you generally think of as a knife, like actually cutting into a box without having to kind of start and slice. Getting this into a package is okay, but getting into something that, or like a box where you can get under the flaps or something, you can get under the flaps with it and it works. But if that whole thing is taped up or plastic, it might be a little hard to get that thing started once it's, to get it in there and going. But I mean, getting it ready, boom. It definitely beats the WE Gnar in ease of getting it ready, right? As far as the design goes, I'm actually going to give the design award because it is funny and fun. The design award is going to slightly go to the Wiener Warrior. The WE Gnar is very compact. It's useful. It just barely loses out, and the only reason it loses out is because the Wiener Warrior is just so fun, right? It is just fun. But you know what? I'm going to take that back. The design, I'm going to go. It's fun. It's not enough. I was just about ready to do it, but it's not enough. The design, I'm going to switch what I just said to the WE Gnar. Because as I was going through it, I had kind of planned this out, but You know what? I don't think so. I think I'm going to go design the WE Gnar. It's more elegant, it's more refined, it's more thought out. And I'm going to give the aesthetics to the Wiener Warrior. It's younger, it's more fun, it's funny. It's really about the aesthetics and not about the design and use. It's really about how fun it is to look at, how cool that is. But, you know, a year after you have it, you're going to want to actually have more uses for something that's going to be like a companion to you. So the design goes to the WE Gnar, the aesthetics goes to the Wiener Warrior. The mechanics, I'm actually going to give to the WE Gnar as well. But yeah, with the more elegant, refined, sort of older kind of design, the sort of more classy, refined elegance, all goes to the WE Gnar. Absolutely. The ball bearings in it, just the tuning of it, right? There's no blade play everywhere. There's no lock stick. It's got this slightly brass or goldish colored thumb stud with the darker tan bronze, sort of aged bronze kind of look on the handle. Very, very nice. And WE is top notch. Boker's kind of less expensive, right? The mechanics are good, right? It snaps that hard, but the fact that it takes two hands to use. It's not always wieldy. And while it's nice, let me double check. I want to make sure, yeah, it's got the washers. The washers are in there, kind of keep the dirt out. It's just not as easy to use. You can't use it with just one hand. You have to always pay attention to it. It's a little bit demanding. Whereas the WE Gnar is just elegant, forgiving, and understanding, it seems. And you know, it is, again, classy, the sort of older gentleman vibe, as opposed to the young hot dog here. And on noteworthy points, man, gotta give it to the Wiener Warrior. Because really the noteworthy point on it is what it is. It's fun and it's funny. It goes right with that aesthetics. Intended purpose, here's the thing. If I were to score it on whether or not each one did its intended purpose properly, the Wiener Warrior wins, because it was entirely conceived as an April Fool's joke. And it just was so popular, people wanted it, they brought it out. This is meant to be fun and funny. And while it does that, that's about all it does. It does manage to be useful, but not as useful. And with the intended purpose of an EDC, yeah, the intended purpose of the WE Gnar is more about you and the knife. It is more about that partnership, whereas the Wiener Warrior is fun and a novelty and really starts to only become fun if you can show it to other people or if other people get to use it. Right? After a little while, that's really what the Wiener Warrior becomes. Whereas the WE Gnar will become more and more like your companion or partner in your daily tasks or any of your EDC type uses than the Wiener Warrior will. So I'm actually going to give the intended purpose to the WE Gnar. So that's design, mechanics, and intended purpose for the WE Gnar, and we have aesthetics and noteworthy points for the Wiener Warrior. So here we go. Cost to value ratio, right? The cost is so much lower for the Wiener Warrior. So much lower for the Wiener Warrior. The cost isn't super high for the WE Gnar. And you really can't even get them anymore unless you get them on the second hand. It's not super high, and you get a ton of value. It's hard to really put value. A lot of people are going to like the lower price, the easier price of entry. Like, it doesn't cost very much to get into the Wiener Warrior. But by the same token, that's kind of the downside. It is a little bit more exclusive to have the WE Gnar. Not as many people have it. Not as many people are going to be interested in it. It's not because it's bad. It's just, you know, it's definitely more of a one-person kind of thing. Like, it's really, you don't bring it out to show it. You do it because it's safe, it's comforting, you know it's going to do the job, And then it just, you put it back and it's ready to do again. It's not as flashy, but it's, say, more reliable for an EDC. It's kind of going along with it to be able to go to a lot of different places. You don't have to worry about swapping it out if you're going into a city that has particularly restrictive laws or anything like that. But the Wiener Warrior, you would. You have, number one, there's the automaticness. It just pops right out. And then there's this slightly longer blade, that just... Yeah, it's fun. But after a while, that's really, that's great. But the usage becomes less. So it's really, the cost to value ratio, because the cost part is definitely Wiener Warrior. The value is much harder, right? Because you get a lot for the price of the WE Gnar. It's not easy to get, and not just anybody can get a WE Gnar. Whereas just about anybody can get one of these Wiener Warriors. They're just restocked. If you're watching this much later, this is December 2023, and they just restocked the second batch of the Wiener Warriors. So these are coming in. The WE Gnar, no longer made. This is a discontinued model. It was going out for a while. It was nice while it lasted. But they just don't make them like that anymore. It just is the way it is. So that's a really hard. I'm actually going to give this a tie for the cost of value, which isn't very, very often. For me, the WE Gnar is a better cost of value. But there are lots of people who put a higher value on just the raw fun of this. And I can't deny how fun this thing is to just sit here and flip. It doesn't have many other uses than that, but the fact that I can just sit here all by myself and pop this thing out and have fun with it, that's not bad. I can with the WE Gnar, but it really does feel like it's not as just about the fun. It's about doing work. It's about having a purpose. And both of those are valuable. For me, the classier, gentlemanly style of the WE Gnar is a better value for the cost than the Wiener Warrior. But I can see how they both together, and it's really hard to call one over the other. Again, I have a slight leaning towards the WE Gnar, but I can't deny the Wiener Warrior's value. So I'm going to call that a tie. So we're 3, 2, and 1 on the tie. And now it comes to the expectations. I expected the Wiener Warrior to be fun and funny. It's why I got it. It does kind of make me laugh, right? But that's what I expected it to be. It exceeded my expectations by being actually built to be used. This isn't just a novelty. It has D2 steel, has a well-ground secondary bevel there and apexing, relatively rough. It's sharp, it's usable. The automatic part of it is out there. So I expected it to be more of a novelty, and it's a full-fledged knife. D2 automatic, hits hard, it's usable, it's going to be usable for a long time. This is not just a novelty knife. So I was actually I didn't expect Boker to make it crap, but I was pleasantly surprised to a slight degree that it was built more robustly than I expected. And maybe that's my low experience with Boker, but it just, a novelty knife I thought might be a little bit less put together. This isn't. This is put together as good as any of the other knives in the category. The WE Gnar is a sleeper. I expected it to be okay. It's a WE. I knew it was titanium S35. I expected it to be okay. Where it exceeded my expectations, it has incredible fit and finish. It is almost perfectly sized for my hand and what I need and what I do. It is nearly perfect for any of the things where it comes there. Now, this is, of course, dependent upon hand size. The WE Gnar might be a little small for some people, where you have to have the 3-fingered sort of claw, or you have to have the pinch grip, which it does very well. If you just give it a hammer fist or a monkey fist, it's not the most aggressive. It takes a specific touch. But the sheer build quality, the comfort of that drop in the back in the hand when you do have it, how it just rolls into the hand, and It's very, very, very well done and designed and ergonomic, and it just fits right. And I did not expect that from the WE Gnar. So it exceeded my expectations in many other ways, in ways of use, in ways of comfort, build quality as well, though I expected quite a bit from WE. WE is not a shoddy place. They make really good knives. And do a pretty good job of their workmanship. So there's a lot to be valued there. So for me, the WE Gnar exceeded more expectations in a far more robust and useful way. And that's going to have me give it to the WE Gnar on the expectations part. And that's also, both of these, there's not really a request. Like I don't want a higher quality steel or a more expensive steel in the Wiener Warrior, because then it would really kind of get rid of the novelty and you start trying to turn use. There's not a whole lot to change on the WE Gnar, except, well, I mean, maybe a little bigger, but yeah, that's all of us, right? But that's about the only thing, because for me, the size is actually part of the fun. It's just the right size. It's just right, as Goldilocks might say. It is just right. So that's where I'm going to sit it. Design goes to the WE Gnar. Mostly because for the same reason expectations. It's more about its use, its EDC use, and not about the novelty and fun of it. Whereas the aesthetics, the fun goes all the way. This thing, the aesthetics of this are a huge part of the novelty. So it really, like, the WE Gnar is great on the aesthetics. It's not like this is really just between these two. But you can't deny the aesthetics of the Wiener Warrior. It doesn't look... This is not a knife that's going to scare someone. You pop it out. If anything, it's going to make people laugh, right? This is... For that, the aesthetics part of it, it wins hands down. This is... You could pull this knife out, and it would almost be comedic if you're like, hey, I'll get you. And then you pop out the Wiener Warrior, right? Like, that's almost comedic. So for me, the aesthetics go to there. So that's 1 and 1. The mechanics go to the WE Gnar. It is refined, tuned well, and can be used with one hand, whereas the ability to use the Wiener Warrior one hand means you got to like rub it on your leg and all that other stuff. So 2 to the WE Gnar, 1 to the Wiener Warrior. And the noteworthy points, man, it's the noteworthy points on the Wiener Warrior, again, what it does. It's definitely built there. It's another thing that goes to the Wiener Warrior. The noteworthy points is the novelty. This is hilarious. It's great. So the noteworthy points is there. Intended purpose, that's that right now. That's 2 and 2. And the intended purpose, I gave it I went to the WE Gnar, because the EDC-ness of it. While the Boker definitely has an intended purpose, that's its intended purpose for the novelty. While it can be a decent EDC, its real intended purpose is the novelty. And while it fits into that narrow scope, the WE Gnar fits into a much broader and definitely has I would say, a more refined, thought out, and sense of purpose, as opposed to just a good joke. While they did make it a good, useful knife, that is not... It's the noteworthy points or the intended purpose of it. It does it. It'll do it, but its intended purpose is novelty. For that reason, I gave it to the WE Gnar. Again, 3 for the WE Gnar, 2 for the Wiener Warrior. Can give them both 1 or just call it a draw. Cost to value, gave it to them as equivalent knives. And of course, the expectations, I gave it to the WE Gnar. So that's actually, for everyone who is keeping track there, right? We've got 4 for the WE Gnar, 2 for the Wiener Warrior, and 1 draw. If you want to call that for the Wiener Warrior because it is a lower cost, you can do that. That's still 4 for the WE Gnar and 3 for the Wiener Warrior because of its lower cost. And with that, I'm going to stop because that is really the count. The WE Gnar Even though the Wiener Warrior put up a good fight, we are going to close the book on the Wiener Warrior and declare the WE Gnar the winner of the wieners. Wiener chicken dinner, right? The winner of the Wiener War is the WE Gnar, and the Wiener Warrior is in second place. Nice backup. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it right there, you guys. This was a somewhat almost serious comparison, but I would while the reasoning was very sound, as you may have noticed, I did choose the more refined, older, classier gentleman over the sort of brash, hard-hitting, younger hot dog Wiener Warrior. And that's how I'm going to leave it. The WE Gnar wins by just the tip. All right, so everyone, go ahead, take this video, watch it twice, comment as much as you like, be mindful of side effects. Remember to like and subscribe. This has been your Dose of Drew. I am said Drew. You guys have a great rest of your night.